The top 5% entrepreneurs, they don't think like you, they don't act like you, and that's why they get the results they get. I've spent the last 4 years analyzing the top 5% earning entrepreneurs in the UK, multi-millionaires, not only in books and YouTube interviews, but firsthand, working with them one-to-one and via workshops worldwide. So I'm not going to talk anymore here. Come sit down with me and let's have a seat. After working over 587 hours with these millionaires, I'm gonna leak the way their brain works, not only to earn so much, but to focus more and actually get shit done. So without further ado, these are the 5 principles I've stole from multi-millionaires to go from cleaning cutlery at Bill's, earning £7.50 per hour, to reaching 5 figures per month. But before we get into these principles, I want you to actually understand where you're at right now. You're probably working your ass off, hustling, grinding, putting the hours in, but the results just aren't matching your effort. You're watching other people blow past you, wondering what they know that you don't. Well, let me tell you what's happening. You're operating with the same mental models as the 95%. You're thinking about productivity the way everyone else thinks about it. You're using the same strategies that keep mediocre people stuck at mediocre income levels. So by the end of this video, you're gonna understand how the top 5% think. And I'm not talking about surface level, hustle harder advice, that's bullshit. I'm talking about the actual mental frameworks that separate 7-figure earners from everyone else. We're talking about the difference from working 60 hours a week for 3K a month versus working 30 hours a week for 50K a month. That's not an exaggeration. That's the gap, and we're about to close it. So let's start off with principle number 1. Damn, look at this sexy diagram I made. Anyways, let's move on to principle number 1. They prioritize energy over time. Here's where most people get productivity completely wrong. They think the problem is time. I need more hours in the day, I need to wake up earlier. And honestly, I used to think the same thing. When I was working as a waitress, I'd come home, work on my side business until 2 a.m, then wake up at 6 a.m. and do it all over again. I thought that's what success requires. Just more time, more energy, more sacrifice. Because that's literally all I saw online. People promoting hustle culture and showing that this was the ultimate path to success. And then, after 2 years of heading into my coaching journey, which started by me working in events for a startup company and finding more interest in their business growth than the actual work I was supposed to be doing, I managed to scale them, and then from there I just started working and running workshops for other companies, and then that led to me working with the top 5% earning entrepreneurs in the UK. And through that, I noticed something fascinating. These multimillionaires were coming to me because despite all their success, they were burnt out. They'd built incredible businesses but sacrificed everything else along the process. They thought more hours was the answer, but that was destroying them. So I introduced them to this framework. Time isn't the real currency. Energy is. When we mapped out their days, they had maybe 3 to 4 hours where their brains were actually functioning properly. And for everything else, they were just operating at 60 to 70% capacity, but still forcing themselves to brutally work through these 12-hour days. And I'll never actually forget one entrepreneur in particular during a workshop session. He was making around 8 million a year, but he told the group something like really shocked us, to be honest, especially the younger founders. He said that his wife just told him, like literally days before the workshop, that she barely recognized him anymore, and that he wasn't the man that she decided to marry in the first place because he was constantly working, sacrificing his health, his family, and basically everything for the business. So after feeling pretty bad for him, not gonna lie, we did this. We restructured his entire day. We identified his peak energy hours, which was 7 to 9 a.m. and 2 to 4 p.m. During this window, he'd focus on high energy work only. Things like marketing, deal restructuring, all that kind of stuff. And everything else was either systemized, delegated, or moved to lower energy periods. And within 8 weeks, he'd cut his working hours from 70 hours per week all the way down to 35. His revenue didn't even drop, it actually increased by 30%. And that was all because the quality of his strategic thinking improved drastically. And most importantly, like this is pretty damn crazy, he got his wife back. and therefore his life. And not gonna lie, out of all wins, this is probably the one that's gonna hit me the most. So here's the framework. Match your energy levels to the leverage of the task. High energy hours for high leverage activities, things like content creation, strategy, sales, and low energy hours for things like admin, emails, errands, or meetings that could have been emailed. And one entrepreneur in my workshop actually said something to me that will really stick. He said something like, "You made me realize that when I was writing emails during my peak hours, I was essentially paying myself £500 an hour to do £20 an hour work. And to be honest, probably more like 6 if you're hiring someone from the Philippines." And that's what happens when you mismatch your energy. And I really want you to think about that right now. How much time are you wasting? And how much are you undervaluing yourself? You're wasting your most valuable resource on work that doesn't require it. So here's what you're gonna do. And this is exactly what I got the top 5% earning entrepreneurs to do in my workshops. For the next 7 days, track your energy level every 2 hours. It's really not complicated. Just rate yourself from 1 to 10. Notice the patterns. When do you feel the sharpest? When does your brain feel sluggish? When do you feel naturally motivated? Versus when do you force yourself to work? Once you know your peak hours, protect them like your business depends on it, because it does. Block them out on your calendar. Make them unavailable. Reserve those hours exclusively for work that actually moves your business forward. The top 5% don't work harder than you. They just work on the right thing when their brain is actually capable of doing them well. That's the difference. All right, moving on to principle number 2. They engineer environments that win for them. This is probably one of the most underrated principles in this entire video. And I'm telling you right now, if you get this one thing right, everything else I'm about to share becomes easier. Working with the top 5%, I discovered these incredibly successful entrepreneurs had built massive businesses, but some of their environments were working against them. Willpower was keeping them going, but willpower runs out every single day. Relying purely on willpower and discipline is a losing strategy. Your environment is constantly pushing you towards certain behaviors. The question is whether you're intentionally designing your environment to push you towards success. Environment design isn't just physical. It's information environment, social environment, and visual. In your physical environment, you should have different workspaces for different types of work. For example, one entrepreneur making around 3 million a year completely restructured his home office based off what we mapped out. He created a separate workspace where his phone doesn't come with him. It stays in the kitchen during work blocks. Your brain associates each space with a different mode, and it does that so you drop into that mode faster. It's basically a cue that does the heavy lifting for you, and I'll get to that in a moment. We also set up website blockers on his laptop, and this made it literally impossible to access social media during work hours. And the one I recommend is Cold Turkey app. You can basically type into the URL, and no, this is not an ad, getcoldturkey.com. You can use the free version, and basically what it does is you can schedule blocks and you list the websites that distract you. For example, Instagram, X, whatever is distracting you. I don't want to get into details. And it blocks them system-wide across all browsers. So the friction is too hard to cheat. And here's the neuroscience behind it. Every time you repeat a behavior in a specific context, you reinforce neural pathways. And that's called context-dependent learning. Your brain encodes not just the task, but the surrounding. The chair, the lighting, even the smell of the room. All of it becomes part of that memory network. And once that network is wired in, you don't have to think anymore. You step into the environment and your brain starts firing in the right direction on autopilot. Now the cool part is, you can design this. You can engineer your environment to trigger the exact mental state that you want. Not by forcing focus, but by associating it with a specific state. Each environment becomes a mental anchor. And yes, you can also do this if you live in a small studio apartment. It's got nothing to do with the square footage. It's to do with the repetition of these behaviors in these specific environments. For example, if you've got a small space, you can sit on one side of the desk for admin work and the other for creative writing. You can light a different candle, use a different playlist, shift the lighting. All you need is a signal, so your brain stops guessing and starts taking action. Next is information environment. The rule is no information input before information output. So don't read anything, don't watch anything, don't consume any content until you've created something first. And that way, your brain stays always in output mode instead of switching straight to input mode first thing in the morning. That's a quick one. And last is social environment. Spend time with people 2 to 3 levels above you. People who've already built what you want to build. Your thinking completely shifts when you model people who've already figured things out. And a lot of these millionaires in the room where I was coaching came from literally nothing. And they joined other masterminds, mentorships, and communities with people at a much higher level than them and learned from them. And that is why they were there. So you really don't need that much information. You just need the right information from the right people. And let's say you're taking advice from someone. They don't need to be above you in everything, but just in the specific topic you're seeing them for. This is the fastest way to get to where you want to be. They didn't come to me because I was a billionaire. They were learning from me for specific information. And if they just get information from the right people for the right things, they're gonna get so much further ahead. So in summary, for principle 2, every decision is a micro decision draining your willpower. Your phone or laptop you're using right now to watch this video, that's a decision. Those tabs open, another decision. And by the end of the day, you've made hundreds of these micro decisions and you're exhausted. Not from work, from resisting distractions. So eliminate those decisions entirely. Once you finish watching this, put your phone in another room. Make sure your workspace only has what you need. Block your social media during work hours. The decision is already made by your environment. So audit your environment today. Remove everything that doesn't serve your most important work. Just like Alex Hormozy says, focus on the one thing and make your default action the productive one. Now let's move on to principle number 3. They think in systems, not tasks. This is one thing they lived by even before working together. The top 5% don't just tick boxes. They zoom out. They've always looked for better, smarter, more sustainable ways to grow. Systems weren't a new concept for them. They just wanted to use their existing ones and make them insane. They never settled for waking up every day to plan a new to-do list, grinding it out and repeating the same thing tomorrow. That's not how they operate. From the beginning, they were the type of people who asked me the same questions, like how do I build something that works without me? So my role was just to help them refine what was already there and make it better. For example, one entrepreneur I worked with was already batching content. We just made his system tighter. On Mondays, he had his 30-minute idea dump, and this is where he'd also analyze what was working well from his competitors. On Tuesdays, he'd script content. On Wednesdays, he'd record and get them edited. And Thursdays, he'd schedule them from 10 hours to 4. See, not because he was working harder, just because his system got sharper. And in that way, he just did that. It didn't take the whole day, and he managed to get on top of the other things that were also moving his business forward. And bear in mind, a big misconception is that you don't need to be busy in order to be productive. The less you do, the more productive you are, because you can focus on that with a higher quality. Let me give you another example. These entrepreneurs also had the mindset of, if I have to remember this, it's fragile. They just wanted to take it up a notch. So let's look at this. Task thinkers say, I need to follow up with leads. Whereas system thinkers say, I need a CRM that automates follow-ups and pings me when someone wants to book in a call. Task thinkers also say, I need to post content. System thinkers say, I need a system that generates batches and schedules without me needing to touch it. So here's what I want you to do. Write down 3 things that you do every week and then ask, what would a system for this actually look like? Every system needs a trigger to start this, a process that runs this, and an outcome that happens without your brain needing to remember. Start with one and improve the one that you already use. And keep doing what the 5% do. Upgrading systems that buy back time, protect energy, and grow sustainably. And if you want to fast track to that stage, then go ahead and click the link in the description. One of them will be there to book in a call with me and see how we could potentially do that together. For now, let's move on. Here we are. They experiment fast and execute on the day. As I said, success loves speed. Let me draw a heart here on the side. just to emphasize that. Working with the top 5%, I noticed they naturally lean towards speed. But many became more cautious as their business grew. And that's why they had plateaued. Most people have an idea, they think about it, plan it, refine it, and then second guess it. And 6 months later, they're still planning it. And that's probably why you're watching this. Meanwhile, someone else executed it in a week. They learned what worked, iterated, and is now 3 steps ahead. I reintroduced them to the speed principle which they used to begin and build their businesses in the first place. And that is, I don't know if I've got it here. No, I don't. But you basically have the idea, let's say on Monday, you test by Wednesday maximum and know if it works by Friday. One entrepreneur I worked with wanted to launch a high-ticket coaching program after just having exited his e-com business. And he'd been planning it for months, perfecting his landing page, got professional videos taken of him, outlined and scripted the full curriculum, which to me was honestly crazy. And I challenged him by saying, let's just test this to see if people actually want it first. So what he did was record a 10-minute Loom video explaining his offer, nothing perfect. He literally just freestyled it and he sent it to his email list. And 24 hours later, 7 people were already interested. And I'm not joking, literally 48 hours later, he got 3 sales for 5K each. So he literally got 15K revenue from a 10-minute unpolished video, whereas he spent months procrastinating, trying to perfect it all. So he jumped from the perfectionist loop to the fast mover loop. Don't mind my shitty drawings. And honestly, I wish I did this before I even started my first coaching niche, because I was just perfecting so many free ebooks. And if my first business mentor is watching this, then she'll definitely know what I mean. But literally every single week, I was just launching things that were getting 0 demand. And that was simply just because I liked the idea of it. But what you need to get inside your head is that you aren't buying from you. So let the audience do the choosing. Or if you're so stuck on a specific idea and you do have the cash flow already, then go and find the audience you want via paid ads. So yeah, basically help them develop the bias towards same day execution. If you have an idea for a post, write it and publish it on the same day. If you get feedback from a call, implement it the same day. If a coach or a new YouTube video shares a new YouTube video, then start it before the week ends. Your brain is made to protect you from risk. If you give it time, it'll manufacture every possible reason why you shouldn't go ahead to do that thing. So don't give your brain time to talk to you out of things. Let me give you an illustration to show you this. The perfectionist here spent 2 weeks perfecting one piece of content. And they got it 95% right, let's say. And they got 20 views on that video. Whereas the fast mover spent just 2 hours creating one piece. And they got a 17K view count, which is obviously less than the perfectionist. But then they had time to post another the next day. And by week 2, they had posted 10 pieces of content. And so they got 170K views in total. And that's all also because the algorithm liked them more due to consistency and a better understanding of what they actually post to push it out to the right people. So let me ask you, who learns more here? Who improves faster? The fast mover isn't smarter. They just moved faster, learned faster, got better faster. You can't learn quality without quantity. The person who creates 100 pieces will be infinitely better than the one who creates 10 pieces. 10 times more reps, 10 times more feedback, and therefore 10 times more opportunities to learn. The market doesn't reward perfection. It rewards consistency. And perfection really has nothing to do with quality. It's just fear disguised as standards. So your action step for me is to think about one idea you've been sitting on. And I want you to execute on it tomorrow. Not perfectly, just take the first real action. That thing where you're just gonna finish the task and think, damn, I'm actually moving forwards with this. And just give it 2 hours max, okay? That's all you need for starts. And this forces you to cut out the overthinking. Alright, finally let's move on to principle number 5, discipline. Without this, none of these other principles even matter. You can just forget all of them if you don't have this one thing intact. Most people think discipline means forcing yourself through pain. Waking up at 5 a.m. exhausted, working 70 to 80 hours a week burnt out, pure brutal willpower every single day. Many of my clients had burnt themselves out with that exact mentality, and I had to reframe discipline for them entirely. Discipline doesn't mean going hard when you're motivated. That's just energy, and energy runs out. Real discipline means showing up with focus and consistency, especially when you don't feel like it. It's that decision, that promise you make to yourself to stick to your system no matter your mood. That's what builds results you can actually rely on. If you're still relying on motivation to move, then you're slowly breaking your own momentum. Build something that holds so your output doesn't crash every time that life gets difficult. For example, after our workshops, they had non-negotiables. Things they do no matter what, no matter how they feel, no matter what's going on. For example, one entrepreneur created 5 pieces of content every Sunday at 11 a.m. Not when he was just feeling inspired to create a little video. Every single Sunday at 11 a.m. Some days were great, some days were okay, but he just made sure he did it every single weekend to prepare for the week ahead. I don't let them pick arbitrary things. We identify the behaviors that have the highest leverage in their business. The things that, if done consistently, guarantee growth. So don't spread discipline thin. Concentrate it. Pick 1, maybe 2 non-negotiables that, if done consistently, changes everything. Nail those consistently before adding anything else. And to be honest, I wouldn't even say 2 things. Priority is called a priority because it's one thing only. So stick to that one thing only, please. Because as you can see here, deep consistency in one area beats shallow consistency in multiple areas. And also, discipline doesn't come from motivation. It comes from your identity. Because when your actions are tied to how you feel, you'll always stay inconsistent at them consistently. No matter how much you force, no matter what you do, it'll stay like that. But when your actions flow from who you are, reinforced identity, they become automatic. They don't just show up because they're in the mood to work. They show up because they're builders, founders, operators. That's the identity. And once that's locked in, discipline isn't forced anymore. It's just part of how they move. Motivation always falls. Identity holds. So here's your challenge. What's one non-negotiable that if you did consistently for 90 days would transform your business? Not 5 things, 1. Pick one thing, make it specific, lock it into your calendar, and then treat it like oxygen. Not just a nice to have, but something that's part of who you are. You're not trying to scale a business. You're a founder who leads with precision. You're not trying to get more focused. You are someone who makes clear decisions and protects their energy. The first week is gonna be hard to step into that identity. The second week is easier, but by week 4, it feels weird not to do it because you're so attached with the person who you identify as that it will be weird not to actually take that action. That's when discipline transforms into identity. These are the principles that keep the top 5% entrepreneurs ahead. Frameworks I've used to sharpen over 100 working hours, working directly with high-earning founders who wanted more clarity, more structure, and more freedom without losing themselves in the process. So if you've been grinding and not getting the traction you want, it's not because you're lazy or doing everything wrong. You're just using frameworks that weren't designed for the level you're trying to operate on. Simple as that. So now you've got the blueprint. The only question is, are you going to actually use it? This is your action board. Go ahead and screenshot it or whatever you want. But I've also put together a free 8-minute breakdown showing exactly how I help entrepreneurs shift into these mindsets and install these systems and more the same way that the top 5% operate. You'll find it in the first link in this description, and I'll also go ahead and pin it in the comment section below. Speaking of which, hit like if this helped, subscribe for more, and drop a comment below, Let me know which principle you're gonna implement first. And whilst you're at it, you might as well drop down your biggest takeaway from this video so I can see what to create more of. Anyways, I'll see you in the next one. Go implement this stuff.